The lawyer's assistant slid one page across the conference table, and the room went so quiet I could hear the air conditioning click on. That single page was the reason my sister was about to lose the house she'd bragged about for 3 years. My name is Clara Winslow. I'm 36 years old. I audit insurance claims for a living, and I've built a career on one simple skill. I notice the number that doesn't belong. This is the story of the number that changed everything, and the ending involves a dead man's signature and a lie so careless it unraveled an entire family in one afternoon. To understand why that page mattered, you need to go back 2 years, to the night my daughter died in a hospital bed with a drawing of a treehouse taped above her pillow. Her name was Ivy. She was 7. She had the kind of laugh that made strangers in waiting rooms smile without meaning to. Ivy got sick in the spring. By fall, the word neuroblastoma had rearranged my entire life. There was one option left, a targeted therapy trial in Denver, $164,000, not covered by insurance, no negotiating. I made $72,000 a year. I had $11,000 saved. I had a daughter running out of time. My family was never generous with me. Renata, my sister, was the golden one, the one who got the car, the tuition, the benefit of every doubt. I was the quiet one they called sensible, like it was a consolation prize. So I did the one thing I swore I'd never do. I asked my parents for help. My mother, Diane, sat across from me in her sunroom, iced tea sweating in her hand, and told me they simply didn't have that kind of money to spare. 2 weeks later, they wired Renata $200,000 in cash for a lakefront property with a private dock. Sit with that for a second, because I had to. I didn't scream. The angrier I get, the quieter I become, and that night I was silent as a held breath. At Renata's housewarming, she found my phone open to Ivy's fundraiser page and read the donation total out loud to the whole party like it was a punchline. She isn't even really family, my mother added, loud enough for the room. She's the mistake you turned into a whole personality. Everyone laughed. My daughter, wearing a bandana because her hair was gone, asked me why everyone was laughing at us. Ivy died 11 weeks later. My parents sent a wreath. The card said our thoughts are with you, like we were strangers who'd lost a distant cousin. Here's the first thing to remember, because it becomes the whole case later. Write down this word, trust. 18 months after the funeral, a case landed on my desk at the firm, an old estate file, an insurer chasing a small annuity attached to a closed inheritance. I opened the folder and saw my grandfather's name, Elias Winslow, dead 3 years, and my stomach dropped before my brain caught up. Buried under the death certificate was a document I had never seen, a private trust, established 16 months before he died. Beneficiary Ivy Rose Winslow, funded at $190,000. My grandfather had left my dying daughter a fortune, and the year she was dying, I was begging strangers on the internet for $200 at a time. Nobody had ever told me this trust existed. Not my mother, not my father, not the lawyer who read the will while I stood in the doorway holding a casserole dish. Hold on to that feeling, because it's about to get so much worse. That night, I made myself one promise, quiet and absolute. I was going to find out exactly what happened to that $190,000. The next morning, I requested a full trust accounting, every deposit, every withdrawal, every date, because dates are where the truth always hides. While I waited, the paralegal mentioned something almost as an afterthought. My grandfather had named a successor trustee in case the first one failed her duty. That successor was me. Are you starting to see where this is going? Because it gets so much darker before it gets better. The accounting arrived on a gray Thursday. The trust opened at $190,000 and sat untouched for over a year. Then one line stopped my breathing. A single withdrawal, $178,000, memo blank, dated the 9th of October. That was the exact week I sat in my mother's sunroom and heard her say they didn't have the money to spare. I pulled the county property records that night. Renata's lakefront property, purchase price paid in full, recording date the 11th of October, 2 days after the money vanished from my daughter's trust. The numbers matched almost to the dollar. They didn't just refuse to save my daughter, they stole the exact fortune that could have saved her and used it to buy a private dock. I did not scream. That night I became a silence with a plan inside it. I called an estate attorney named Priya Deshmukh. She read everything and said, "This is one of the cleanest breach of fiduciary duty cases I've seen in 20 years, and because the funds are traceable, a court can force that house to answer for the money used to buy it." Then I told her I was the named successor trustee, and her eyebrows lifted for the first time all meeting. "Then you don't just have a claim," she said, "you have the authority to seize the trust and demand every dollar back." I want to be honest, it wasn't a straight line to victory. 3 weeks after we filed, my parents' lawyer claimed the missing money was a verbally authorized family loan and that my copy of the trust was missing its final signature page, meaning my authority as successor couldn't even be proven. For 2 weeks, I genuinely believed I might lose everything because the one page that proved my grandfather chose me had conveniently vanished from the file. But here's a punchline worth remembering: people who forge a paper trail to hide a theft always leave behind the fingerprints of their own panic. Searching the filing firm's archives, I found the notary's own retained duplicate of the signature page untouched, still bearing my name in my grandfather's handwriting as successor trustee. Then I found something worse, a loan agreement dated the 8th of October, one day before the withdrawal, supposedly authorized by my grandfather, except he had been dead for 5 months by then. Someone had forged a dead man's signature to make a theft look like a favor. We didn't just have a case anymore, we had a forgery. The hearing was set for a gray Tuesday morning downtown. My mother sat in her good coat, jaw set, still believing charm could talk her out of anything. Renata rolled her eyes like this was an inconvenience she'd tolerate for an hour. My attorney laid the trust, the deed, the notary's page, and the forged loan agreement on the table one at a time, then said the sentence I had waited 2 years to hear out loud. The defendant knowingly diverted a minor beneficiary's medical trust to purchase real estate for a third party, then fabricated documentation to conceal the theft. The judge held up one hand, still reading, and the silence in that courtroom was the loudest sound I have ever heard. The judge looked directly at my mother and said the words breach of fiduciary duty and criminal referral in the same sentence. Renata's lakefront house, the one she filled a champagne glass in front of while laughing at my daughter's fundraiser, is now subject to a constructive trust claim that could force its sale to repay every stolen dollar, plus interest, plus legal fees. My mother has been removed as trustee permanently. I now control what remains of my grandfather's gift, redirected by court order into a children's medical fund in Ivy's name, so some other mother never has to beg strangers online for a chance her own family already stole and hid. I didn't do this for revenge, though I won't pretend it didn't feel like justice finally exhaling. I did it because a number had been sitting quietly in a file for 2 years, waiting for someone who knew how to read it, and it turned out that someone was me. Dignity is the one thing a room full of laughing people can never actually take from you. They can only wait for you to hand it over, and I decided, finally, not to. Life has a strange, patient way of settling the real account, long after everyone assumes the ledger's already closed. The people who laughed loudest in that kitchen are now sitting in a courtroom explaining a dead man's forged signature. And somewhere, in a treehouse that finally got built with money that was always supposed to be hers, I like to believe my daughter is still laughing, just for entirely different reasons now. What would you have done in my place? Tell me honestly in the comments below. And tell me where you're watching this from tonight. I read every single one, and it reminds me I'm not just talking into an empty room.